and welcome to the latest edition of the Week in 7 Questions. I am Eleftheria Katsi, Communications and Press Assistant at the Martin Center, and a warm welcome to our guest today, Rainer Münz, Senior Research Associate at the Martin Center. Rainer, the Afghan crisis took many of us by surprise. Is this a wake-up call for Europe?
The Afghan crisis might have taken many as a surprise, but it did not come by surprise. It has been in the making over the last 4 or 5 years as the central government in Kabul lost control over more and more territory while the Taliban jihadist groups were gaining ground. And the end game got accelerated by the decision of the US and European allies to pull out of Afghanistan. It's a wake-up call because the way in which we have abandoned the Afghan government and the cooperative pro-Western segments of the Afghan society clearly shows that we are totally dependent on military and political decisions made by the US, while we as Europeans have to confront the consequences, not least the possibility of larger refugee flows arriving in Europe.
Migration flows will likely continue to increase. However, there is a lack of a unified refugee plan. Are we doomed to repeat another 2015?
What we are lacking is a coherent plan, or maybe 2 coherent plans. A plan A, how to deal with future large inflows of irregular migrants. So we are looking or searching for a solidarity mechanism that could help EU member states asymmetrically affected. But we are definitely also lacking a plan B. And this is how to make Europe and the EU member states more attractive for the migrants that we would like to attract.
In your opinion, which are the main challenges in getting EU member states to agree on harmonizing asylum rules?
Asylum decisions vary a great deal between member states. So chances that, for example, a Syrian asylum seeker would get refugee status are high in countries like Belgium or Austria or Germany or Sweden, whereas if the same person would ask for protection in a country like Bulgaria or Hungary or Poland, chances of getting a refugee status are very small. And as long as it's more important which country makes a decision than where this person is coming from and what his or her personal situation is, it's very difficult to argue for a kind of a solidarity mechanism, because this is less of a solidarity, it's more kind of an asylum lottery that we would be introducing.
Also, what do you think about this potential Marshall Plan for Africa? Couldn't we solve a big part of migratory issues by securing a future for the people in their home countries?
I think a Marshall Plan for Africa is warranted, but people need to understand what this means. The original Marshall Plan was that the US was giving 4% of its GDP to European countries in the aftermath of World War II for reconstruction. This money was then lent to European companies, but never paid back. In the case of Africa, this would mean today that we would be giving something like 600 billion euros to African countries, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, to build infrastructure and invest in the economy. Now, the effect would be smaller than it was in Europe, because Africa's population today is about 5 times larger than the population of Western European countries in the late 1940s. And I think it would be naive to assume that these 600 billion euros would lead to smaller migration flows, because it would open up more economic opportunities for people in Africa, but it would also give more people access to cash and to give them the chance to choose between migrating and staying.
What do you think about the future of EU-Turkey relations from a migration perspective?
The willingness of Turkey to cut a deal with the EU has spared the EU hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of irregular migrants and asylum seekers. But at the same time, Turkey was expecting more than money. We have been promising Turkey visa-free travel for Turkish citizens to the Schengen area, accelerated EU accession talks, and the prospect of direct resettlement of Syrian refugees to the EU. This has not happened. Hosting refugees has become less popular in Turkey, and it might well be that in the future a Turkish government would decide that just sending the money is not enough.
Recently, the Commission presented a renewed EU action plan against migrant smuggling. What does it entail and how it can help achieve the objectives of the new Pact on Migration and Asylum?
Now, the pact is full of good intentions and I think well-reasoned proposals. Several of them will be very difficult to be pushed through the Council because certain EU member states do not want to deal with migrants. And so they have no interest in finding common ground here. And at the same time, the proposals show a certain imbalance because they're basically geared towards protecting and shielding Europe from irregular entry and to find a solidarity mechanism, how countries could implement a mechanism for the redistribution of responsibilities for asylum seekers. But the pact is not very explicit on the question how to make Europe more attractive for migrants that we would like to attract.
And finally, in a few days, the Vienna Migration Conference will take place. Could we expect some positive outcomes from this edition?
It's important to have such platforms so that people can exchange views and also exchange expectations. But we cannot expect any decisions being taken at conferences of that kind of format.
Thank you, Rainer, and thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for another Week in 7 Questions episode with another surprise guest.